Evening staff, evening parents, evening students. So I'm sure like me you were alarmed at the statistics that were given tonight in regard the last week of the coronavirus and the rapidly rising rates of infection, those in hospital and clearly death rates as well. We do extend again our support for anyone who's been involved and also extend our gratitude out to our families and parents working on the front line, especially in the NHS. Although many of us were expecting the increased lockdown, it comes as a shock and certainly continued uncertainty, for example, on what will exam students' assessments be for this year, and ultimately a lot more clarity that will come out over the next week. What I would say is that we are several months ahead of the sudden and unexpected position that we were in last March, and I would reassure you then that educators and ourselves were able to support all of our learners to get the required grades, the appropriate grades, and actually to go on to excellent outcomes. So I would really reassure our students in year 13, 14 and year 11 not to worry, that the situation will settle and will resolve and it will be okay for you, absolutely. We will achieve this, we will support you during this time. This demonstration of resilience and determination is no better evidence than today in the way that the staff came together at AUEA to work to construct, to stock, to staff and to plan a complete AUEA test centre, which we were in the position to open from tomorrow morning, and we will be into tomorrow afternoon and onwards. And I think I just want to say a huge thank you to all the members of staff who are involved, as well as the extended community, parents, governors who have volunteered to get involved with our test centre. And that's not wasted. We'll continue to be using that as part of our key worker provision, as part of our staffing, and also potentially as well, as I'll discuss shortly, around BTEC examinations over the next week. The biggest challenge with the announcement at 8 o'clock tonight, and clearly one of our biggest frustrations that I'm facing and staff across the country and head teachers across the country are facing, is not only are we spending the time planning and putting this all in place, and as I mentioned in my earlier meeting, huge time last week was spent giving up getting this planning in place to be back and open, and now we're subsequently in some way closing, is at 8 o'clock at night, what can we really do? I'm sending you a message now at 9:30 at night. Is that really appropriate for you to get this? I hope it's useful, which is why I do it for staff and for parents and for students. But in reality, what can we really do effectively at this time of night? And one of the challenges, of course, is how can my staff now, faced with certainly with the vast majority of them having children of a primary school age, how can they suddenly put provision in place for those students, their children, that they suddenly find with them tomorrow? So I have instructed, and I was informing you now as students and as parents, I have instructed all my staff to say that tomorrow there will not be remote learning online or live lessons. What will happen is that staff will be asked to set a single Firefly task for tomorrow, and that way that students can get on and do that themselves independently. And as a result of that, my staff can focus on how they can sort their key worker provision. And already I'm hearing from other teachers of primary schools in the city and across the West Midlands who are putting in place their own provision for key workers to start on the Wednesday as well. What will happen though tomorrow will be the learning review time for your child. That's really important, the virtual learning review. So your child, if they're in years 9, 10 and 11, will be expected to log into Teams or Zoom, depending on which one their tutors have sent them, and check in with their tutor from 8:30 to 9 in the morning. For sixth form, that is at 10:40. For years 12, 13 and 14, please. Again, check in with your tutors. That could be by Zoom, that could be by Teams, depending on how your teacher has or your tutor has communicated with you. That's really important. It's a bit more informal at that time in the morning. It'd be a chance to chat with the tutor, say that you're okay, but also more importantly, to raise any concerns that you've got, talk about any anxiety. I'm sure you've got it. Lots of staff have got it. I've got it. Therefore, it's important, as we know, to have a chance to talk about that, and you've got your tutors who are there to support you during that process. Our normal remote teaching then will resume from Wednesday onwards, and I'll be sending more details out about that tomorrow. So one of the things I would say, the things that are going ahead. So our key worker and vulnerable student provision will continue, and we've had a significant number of students booked onto that programme, which is fantastic. What will happen then is we clearly got a lot of space, safe, calm, warm environment for them to work. Your child will be allocated a desk that will be separate from other students, so will be isolated during that time. So there's not a worry about them mixing, and obviously concerns of increased infection rates. They will be completely separate. They will queue up as normal, go through the normal wash facilities, and be provided effectively in some way their own little office to work in, and we'll be basing that around the large environment of the Learning Development Centre. And each of the child will also have access then to IT technologies as well. I remind you, as I put in my email, there won't be lessons going on. Instead, in terms of taught lessons, your child will be supported to access their Firefly account and access any remote learning from Wednesday onwards for them to complete. There's also obviously clearly lots of books and stuff available for them during that space and that environment. So from Wednesday, the 6th of January, so from this Wednesday, with parental consent, and I'll be sending out the information tomorrow, we'll be offering all of our key worker and vulnerable students access to our 30-minute lateral flow test centre, the one that I showed in my video earlier and that we set up today. And we would absolutely encourage and strongly recommend that every child who attends our provision has that test. And there'll be 2 tests that are done 3 days apart. And then from that point onwards, we'll be able to probably do with those small numbers serial testing, i.e. once a week, and that will reassure staff, reassure parents as well. Clearly, that is not a COVID test. What that is a test that indicates whether or not a child could be asymptomatic, and they're the ones we're obviously most concerned about when we don't know if they've got the symptoms. And it's purely a case, if there is a positive indicator from that test, we would then be advising that child to go home with yourself and go and seek a normal test, or we would have some tests that you could take away with you and do and send off via mail. So key worker provision will be open from normal for those that are booked on from tomorrow, and if you still wish to book on for the following days, I remind you, please, can you book on by rachel.grant@auea.co.uk, and again, my communication sent out previously has got all those email addresses in the letter that went out to you. So exams was really a key concern, obviously, if there was going to be a future lockdown, which clearly has been stated from this evening. So therefore, it was quite reassuring to hear that the existing proposed programme that was being scheduled for students and their GCSEs and A-levels and BTEC for the summer is going to be reviewed. I would say we're sceptical at the moment. The language that was used was not that exams were cancelled, but they will be reviewed and alternatives will be sought and looked at. We all know from the press, obviously, the concerns that the government had around centre assessed grades, and clearly we all know about the complete atrocity which was the algorithm and how that was used to apply the national assessed grade and the impact that had, especially on inner city children. So we are not sure at the moment what that will be, and clearly over the next week information will come out to us in more clarity about what that could look like, and even potentially longer. So my message to you, if you're in year 11 or if you're in sixth form, in year 13 or 14 expecting to do your exams and working towards your BTEC, is carry on working. Take a moment, take a breath, take a pause, but more importantly, get back into it, get back into working, get back into studying, because we don't know what that assessment will look like. It may not be just centre assessed grade as it was in 2019-20. It could well be, as we've seen in other areas of the country, or I should say the UK, such as Scotland and others, where they've introduced additional assessment methods such as coursework or additional external exams in terms of online exams or other ways of assessments that could be used to help back up and support teacher-based assessments, which no doubt will form a strong part of any future examination prospect. Like I said, with us in teachers, we utilise that information, our assessments, what people are engaging with, the work they were doing, to help us base on the assessments if that was to happen going forward. What we learnt very effectively last year was the role of BTEC, that in fact actually 90% of our BTEC was done and complete prior to the submitting of any grades that went off to the government Department for Education. What that meant was actually the BTEC results we got, which were outstanding in terms of the number of students that achieved the very top grades, and in fact the pass rate was the largest in the country, was the fact that those students were able to stand on their own 2 feet and say, that's the grade that I got. So for a BTEC student, it's absolutely vital that you continue to do your work. That also leads and segues into the fact that currently, in the post-announcement after 8 o'clock tonight, and even the last half an hour, the Department for Education is still saying that BTEC exams will be going on across this week for other schools, if they're doing sort of courses we don't do, or for us into our courses of engineering and science next week on the Monday and Tuesday, the 11th and 12th of January. Equally with that, those exams for several, certainly for the Year 13 science course, involve 6 hours of pre-assessment material as well that has to be completed also in your exam as well, exam conditions on the Thursday or Friday next week, this week I should say. So we're waiting to find out some more overnight. The Pearson's, the exam board, have come back in the last 20 minutes and said they're going to clarify things tomorrow with the DFE, but they also have literally been told at 8 o'clock tonight exactly the same as we've been told and you've been told as well. So I think, again, that's one of the significant frustrations that we're all feeling across the whole of this pandemic, really, is the late announcements and the fact that everybody hears it at the same time, and therefore we have to wait quite a while to get the true detail that comes out behind. So we will continue to work on the premise, the fact that the BTEC sessions will continue this Thursday for Year 12 engineering BTEC extended diploma students, and also for Year 13 science students on Thursday, and on Friday for Year 12 and Year 13 science BTEC students. I'll be sending out more details tomorrow by midday once I've had any final clarity or any settling of the dust from tonight with the exam boards, just to make sure there isn't a last minute U-turn reversal on that tomorrow morning. So again, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you pretty fed up of listening to both myself online or certainly from the government this evening, but I hope this is useful for you, just to give a little bit of clarity if you're picking it up tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'll also put this in an email message to you this evening as well. So from myself and my team, thank you very much for your support for AUEA during this period. Again, I extend our communications that if you've got any questions, any concerns, just drop an email please to principalpa@auea.co.uk, and I'll get back to you tomorrow as soon as possible. Take care, stay safe. Thanks very much. Good night.